At 7:18 on the last Tuesday in May. I set a medium coffee beside the register at Riverbend Cafe. The cashier rang up $3.45. Debit or credit? Debit. I tapped my card. The reader flashed red. Declined. The cashier tried to hide her reaction by straightening a stack of napkins. Sometimes it doesn't catch the chip. You can insert it. I did. The same red message appeared. A contractor behind me shifted a cardboard tray from one hand to the other. Someone near the door checked a watch. Neither person said anything, yet I felt the line tightening around me. Give me a second. I pulled out the credit card issued by the same bank. That one failed too. I usually carried $40 folded behind my driver's license. On Saturday, I had spent the last of it on raffle tickets at a veterans fundraiser and never replaced it. $3.45 sat between me and the door. The cashier lowered her voice. I can hold the coffee. Thanks. I'll be back. Outside, I sat in my truck and called my son. Nathan answered after 3 rings. Dad, everything okay? Both my cards were declined. There was a pause long enough for me to hear a cabinet close on his end. Yeah, he said, I was going to call you. About what? We had them frozen. I looked through the windshield at the cafe window. Who is we? Erin noticed some unusual purchases. Hardware store stuff. A restaurant charge. We thought it was safer to stop everything until we could sort it out. The hardware store charge was mine. So was the restaurant. You froze my cards without calling me? Nathan exhaled. Dad, you're 71. We can't keep pretending nothing changes. Erin's voice came from somewhere near him. If you need something, call us first. That's all we're asking. I tightened my hand around the phone. Who gave either of you permission? We'll talk later, Nathan said. I'm walking into a meeting. Fine. I ended the call. Before retirement, I had spent 3 decades inspecting electrical work for the city. I knew the next step was to check the record. I started the truck and drove to Cedar Grove Community Bank. At each red light, I ran through my recent purchases from memory: lumber, dinner with an old coworker, gas, groceries. Every charge was mine. Monica Reyes had managed the branch for 6 years. When I told her my cards had been frozen by someone else, she did not offer a reassuring guess. She asked for my identification, took me into her office, and opened the account history. Her expression changed before she spoke. Mr. Cole, is this your current mailing address? She turned the monitor. The address belonged to Nathan. No. Did you add his phone as a backup for security codes? Temporarily, months ago. It was never supposed to replace mine. Monica clicked through several screens. Transaction alerts had been removed from my number. Both cards had been reported lost. Their replacements were being mailed to Nathan's house. And my daily purchase limit had been reduced to $500. I authorized none of that. She picked up the desk phone. Then we secure the account before we do anything else. For the next 40 minutes, Monica moved faster than anyone had that morning. She terminated every active online session, canceled the replacement cards, restored my address and phone number, and issued a temporary debit card for me to use at the branch. I created a new password without family names, birthdays, or anything Nathan might guess. Monica also added a verbal passcode for telephone requests. Only I knew it. We're opening an internal investigation, she said. You'll receive the case number today. I slid the temporary card into my wallet. The embarrassment from the cafe had drained away. Something colder had taken its place. Monica stayed at her keyboard. There's one more item. What kind of item? Last night, someone submitted a request to add Erin as an account manager. It is still pending because the bank needs your direct confirmation. Did the request say I approved it? Monica looked back at the pending form. It claims the change was being made at your request. Monica looked up. This was more than a card freeze. The changes would have put your son between you and the bank. Before I left, Monica asked how Nathan had gained access in the first place. The answer took me back 8 months. To a wet October afternoon and a 6-foot ladder I had no business using on soft ground. I had been clearing leaves from the gutter when one leg sank into the lawn. I landed hard enough to break my right wrist. For 6 weeks, a cast covered my hand from the knuckles to below the elbow. Signing checks hurt. Typing with my left hand was slow and ugly. Nathan came over the day after the emergency room. "Let me set up the bills online," he said, "just until the cast comes off." I agreed. At my kitchen table, he created the online profile, scheduled the electric and insurance payments, and helped me compare each amount with the paper statements. When the bank required a backup number for security codes, we used his. My phone had been dropping calls, and Nathan was sitting beside me. Erin brought soup that evening and cut the plastic seal from my medication bottle when I could not grip it. There had been nothing sinister in either gesture. After the cast came off, I resumed paying my own bills. I never removed Nathan's number. Trust made the unfinished detail seem harmless. I told Monica exactly what I had authorized: online setup, automatic payments, and temporary help reviewing bills. "Anything else?" she asked. No authority to freeze cards. No address changes. No spending limits. He was never given permission to sell anything or make decisions after my wrist healed. Monica noted each answer. "I'll have a complete change history ready tomorrow morning." At home, I placed the temporary card and investigation receipt on the kitchen table. The house was quiet enough for the refrigerator motor to sound loud. Nathan and Erin had not always made me feel watched. Nathan called most Sundays, usually while driving Sophie to soccer or Mason to baseball practice. Erin organized Thanksgiving because she could keep 4 dishes hot without losing track of a conversation. When a section of flashing came loose above my porch, Nathan spent a Saturday helping me repair it. Their concern had once left room for me. Over the past several months, that room had narrowed. At a restaurant in February, Erin took the check before I could reach it. "We've got this," she said. "I invited you. Then invite us again next time." She smiled, and I let it go. Later, she noticed the cards in my wallet. "Do you really need all of those? Seems easy to mix them up." Nathan, who managed operations for an insurance company, began asking how much remained in my retirement accounts and whether I had updated my beneficiaries. During a Sunday call, he suggested I simplify things so I would have less to manage. 2 weeks ago, Erin had mentioned Lakeside Commons, a retirement community across town. "They handle maintenance," she said. "No yard work, no gutters." I reminded her that I had stayed off ladders since October. She laughed and changed the subject. Each moment had been small enough to excuse. Sitting alone that evening, I could finally see the direction they shared. The next morning, Monica handed me a packet thick enough to need a binder clip. No money had been transferred, and no withdrawal led to Nathan or Erin. Whatever they were doing, the balance had not been the immediate target. The change history showed something quieter. My alerts had shifted to Nathan. My mail had shifted to Nathan. Replacement cards would have reached Nathan first. Each adjustment placed him between the bank and me. Near the bottom of the packet, Monica marked a customer service note from 3 weeks earlier. "Customer is preparing to downsize. Son will handle future correspondence." "Did you ever say that?" she asked. I read it again. No. The word downsize stayed on the page after everything else blurred. No one had asked me to sell, move, or give anything up. So what, exactly, had they already decided I no longer needed? My longtime attorney listened without interrupting, then slid the bank packet back across his desk. "You need someone who handles elder law every day," he said. "I know the statutes. Rebecca Sloan knows how families use them." By Thursday morning, I was seated across from Rebecca in an office above a pharmacy downtown. She read the account history. The access I had originally granted Nathan. my deed, and the estate documents I had signed years earlier. The house remained titled solely in my name. Nathan held no recorded interest in it. Can they have me declared incompetent? I asked. They can allege it. That's different from proving it. She removed her glasses and set them on the folder. A guardianship case, she explained, would begin with an application and an expert evaluation. A court investigator would notify me, speak with me, and report to the probate court. There would be a hearing. I could have my own lawyer, present evidence, request an independent evaluation, and argue for less restrictive options. Nathan would have to prove incompetence by clear and convincing evidence. So they can't do this quietly. They can make plans quietly. The court part has rules. The distinction settled my breathing. Rebecca tapped the customer service note. What concerns me is the possibility that they're collecting ordinary mistakes and giving them a different meaning. One forgotten appointment, one late payment. Enough small examples can sound persuasive inside a family, even when they prove very little. What do I do? Your money is secure? Yes. Good. Keep the accounts secure. For now, don't tell them how much you know about what they may be planning. She suggested I keep a written record. Facts only. Date, time, exact words, and any decision Nathan or Erin made without asking me. If I could not separate what happened from what I suspected, I was to leave the suspicion out. I bought a black composition notebook on the way home. Nathan called that afternoon. Did you get the cards working? The bank corrected a security issue. What does that mean? It means I can use my account. Silence held for a moment. Okay, he said, we should still talk. Come for dinner tomorrow. Nathan and Erin arrived Friday carrying chicken from the grocery store deli. During dinner, Nathan noticed a generator catalog near my chair. You're not buying one of those without checking prices with me, right? I've compared 3 models. I'm just saying, call before you spend that much. Erin asked whether I still planned to fish with my former coworker in June. When I said yes, she wanted the location, the driving route, and the time I expected to return. We'll be on a lake. Erin, the fish haven't given us an itinerary. She pressed her lips together. Could you at least avoid driving home after dark? Nathan glanced toward the porch. And no more repairs by yourself. If something breaks, call me. I pictured the notebook in my desk drawer. You both seem to have made quite a list. Erin set down her fork. We're trying to keep little problems from becoming big ones. Is that why you looked into Lakeside Commons? Nathan's eyes moved to Erin before returning to me. It's worth seeing, she said. It's a retirement community, Raymond. It's not a nursing home. Who asked you to look? Nobody has to ask us to gather information, Nathan said. Gather it for whom? Erin folded her napkin into a smaller square. You're turning this into something it isn't. They left before dessert. I opened the notebook and recorded the conversation while the phrasing was still fresh. I did not write that Erin was manipulating Nathan or that Nathan wanted my house. I wrote what they had said and where each of them had looked before answering. At 9:43, my phone vibrated beside the notebook. The patient portal showed a new appointment request, cognitive capacity screening. The clinic was closed, so I called when it opened Saturday morning. After verifying my date of birth, the receptionist found the request. Who submitted it? I asked. Keys clicked at the other end. Erin Cole, she said. She is listed here as your family caregiver. Cancel the appointment, I told the receptionist. Of course. Would you like to reschedule with another provider? No, I want a copy of everything submitted with the request. She hesitated, then explained how to download the intake form from my patient portal. By Monday morning, the document was waiting there. Erin had listed 4 concerns. I had returned a library book 9 days late. I had arrived at the dentist on a Tuesday when my appointment was Wednesday. I had asked Nathan how to update the bank application on my phone. I had paid the water bill twice. Noticed the duplicate the next morning. and requested a credit. The library book had slipped beneath the passenger seat of my truck. The banking application had changed its login screen after an update. I had no excuse for the dentist. Beyond writing the wrong date on the kitchen calendar. None of those details appeared on Erin's form. Each event had happened, together, stripped of context. They made me sound as though I was fading in front of everyone. I printed the form and placed it in the black notebook. Then I called Dr. Claire Patel, a geriatric physician in Columbus who had no connection to my family. Her office had a cancellation later that week. The first evaluation lasted most of the morning. Dr. Patel asked about medication, sleep, driving, cooking, appointments, and money. I completed memory exercises, number sequences, and practical problems while she took notes without giving away what she thought. When will I know? I asked. Once I review everything, early next week. I left with a mild headache and no certainty except that I had chosen the doctor myself. On Friday afternoon, my phone rang while I was trimming tomato plants behind the garage. Mr. Cole? This is Laura Simmons with Northfield Realty. I wiped dirt from my hand before answering. What can I do for you? I received a request for a comparative market analysis on your property. Before I schedule anything, I need to confirm that you're considering a sale. The pruning shears stayed open in my hand. Who made the request? Nathan Cole. He identified himself as your son. Did he say he owned the house? No, that's why I called you. Laura offered to close the request. I asked her to send me a copy instead. The document arrived before I went inside. Near the bottom, beneath the property address and Nathan's contact information, someone had typed, "Family expects a decision within 30 days. Owner is not yet on board." I forwarded the document to Rebecca, printed another copy for the notebook, and spent the evening looking at the words "not yet on board." Saturday morning, I drove to Lakeside Commons without telling Nathan or Erin. The entrance opened into a sunlit lobby with upholstered chairs, fresh flowers, and a piano near the windows. Beyond the glass doors, two women walked a small terrier along a garden path. A man about my age sat on a shaded bench reading the newspaper. A staff member named Denise offered me a tour. The apartments were clean and bright. Residents had their own furniture, cars, schedules, and front door keys. A woodworking room smelled of cedar. The dining room served breakfast until 10. Near the elevators, a silver-haired woman asked whether I was considering a move. She had sold her house after shoveling snow became too hard on her knees. My daughter wanted me near Cleveland. She said, "I picked this place." There was quiet pride in the way she said picked. I could imagine choosing a place like Lakeside someday. Several people I met seemed glad they had. Denise checked the appointment screen when we returned to her desk. "It looks like your family already started a file." She turned the monitor enough for me to see my name beside apartment 214. The unit had been reserved for 30 days. Was money taken from any account in my name? Denise opened the payment record. No. Nathan and Erin Cole paid the deposit of $5,000 with their own credit card. That answer unsettled the conclusion I had been building. They had spent their own money. They had also chosen an apartment, a deadline, and a future without asking me. "What did they tell you?" I asked. Denise glanced at the notes and lowered her voice. "Your family told us you would agree once your finances were simplified." Early the following week, Dr. Patel set a folder between us and folded her hands over it. "You did well," she said, "and I don't mean you passed a quiz." Across 2 appointments, she had asked me to remember words, draw a clock, explain what I would do if I smelled gas, and walk her through a month of household expenses. She checked orientation, judgment, memory, and whether I could manage money and live independently. At one point she slid a mock bank statement across the desk and asked which charge I would question. I circled a repeated insurance payment, then showed her how I would confirm it before calling the bank. She asked who cooked, who drove, Who arranged my prescriptions? My answers were plain. I did. I found no impairment that affects your capacity. She said, you understand your choices and their consequences. The paper inside the folder should have felt like a victory. Instead, I thought of a library book under my truck seat and a dental appointment written on the wrong square of a calendar. Ordinary mistakes had been collected until they resembled a case. I'll need copies, I said. By the following week, Rebecca had Dr. Patel's report beside a row of blue tabs on her conference table. One more thing, she said. I checked the probate docket again this morning. No guardianship petition has been filed. My shoulders lowered before I could stop them. Then what are they doing? Applying pressure, creating momentum, hoping you'll agree before anyone has to prove you can't decide for yourself. That answer was less monstrous than the one I had feared, and more familiar. The pressure had come through family voices repeating the same future until resistance began to sound unreasonable. Rebecca turned the documents toward me. We updated my revocable living trust, durable financial power of attorney, and health care directives. We named an independent trust company as successor trustee and limited who could contact the bank on my behalf. You remain sole trustee while you have capacity, she said. If that ever changes, 2 independent physicians must confirm it in writing. Then the trust company steps in. No beneficiary could order the sale of my home. Trust funds could be used only for my benefit. With regular accountings, Nathan and the grandchildren would remain beneficiaries. Rebecca glanced at me over her glasses. Some clients change inheritances when they're angry. I'm not buying obedience with my will. My signature looked steadier on the final page than I felt. Rebecca gathered the signed pages but left my copy in front of me. The legal documents are handled, she said. The family part is still yours. I know. I took my copy home knowing the papers would not decide what happened between Nathan and me. Joan had been gone 5 years. At home, late sunlight reached the kitchen door frame where pencil marks climbed in uneven steps. Nathan, age 8, Nathan, 10. One line had Joan's handwriting beside it, standing tall. Finally. Near the baseboard, a pale scratch curved through the paint. Nathan's metal race car had struck the wall there after he sent it flying off a stack of encyclopedias. Joan had laughed so hard she had to sit on the stairs. The wind chime she chose still hung from the porch beam. Its copper tubes sounded whenever air moved through the maples, soft and irregular, like someone shifting in another room. After Joan's stroke, Nathan had stood beside her hospital bed with both hands locked behind his neck. I should have noticed something sooner. He had carried that sentence through the funeral and into every phone call that began with, "You okay?" I could see the fear beneath some of his control now, the terror that love might fail because he missed a sign. Understanding it did not give him my house, my accounts, or my consent. It only returned his face to the boy whose name was still penciled on my wall. On Sunday, Sophie and Mason came over while Nathan ran an errand. Mason went looking for the old basketball pump. Sophie wandered beside me toward the garden, dragging one hand along the fence. She watched the wind chime turn, then looked across the yard at the maple shading Joan's empty chair. "Grandpa," she said, "why does Mom say we have to enjoy the backyard before you move?" By the 5th week, the maple had filled out enough to shade half the patio. I invited Nathan, Erin, and the kids for burgers on Sunday. The same kind of afternoon we had shared before every question became evidence. Mason found the basketball pump and brought the old hoop back to life. Sophie drew a hopscotch grid in blue chalk beside Joan's chair. For 20 minutes, the yard sounded like itself again. Then Nathan followed me to the grill and reached for the tray in my hands. "I've got it." "So do I." He kept one hand under the tray until I set it down. 10 minutes later, he lifted the grill lid and adjusted a burner I had already adjusted. "Dad, that flame's running high. It's searing." "Sure, I'm just checking." He asked whether I had taken my morning pills. When Mason mentioned a fishing trip, Nathan said he could drive us, though nobody had asked for a driver. Erin sliced tomatoes at the patio table. Did you remember to lock the back door last night? She asked it while Sophie was pouring lemonade. Sophie looked up. Grandpa remembers my birthday and my exam schedule better than you guys do. Nathan's mouth tightened. Erin set the knife down. Soph, I said, take Mason the bug spray. He's feeding every mosquito in the county. She started to object, then carried the bottle into the yard. I waited until both children were beyond the garden fence. The burgers hissed behind me. Joan's wind chime turned once above the porch. Maybe you're right, I said. Maybe it's time I considered an easier place. Nathan exhaled through his nose. Erin's shoulders dropped, and they exchanged a glance too quick to hide. Okay, Nathan said softly. Good, that's good. Erin went inside without asking and returned with her tote bag. From it, she removed a blue Lakeside Commons folder. We didn't want to overwhelm you, she said. We held an apartment so you'd have options. Apartment 214? Her fingers stopped on the clasp. Nathan stared at me. I visited, I said. Who paid the deposit? Nathan leaned back in his chair. We did. $5,000 of our own money. Why? Because this isn't about getting anything from you. His voice rose, then dropped when Mason shouted from the lawn. We put our own money up. Doesn't that tell you something? It tells me you spent $5,000 before I decided anything. You did not want my money, but you still tried to decide for me. Erin pressed both palms against the folder. Nobody is planning your life. I looked at the reservation form beneath her hand. What happens if I say no? Nathan watched smoke drift from the grill. Erin answered first. Then we give you more time. And if I still say no after that? The yard went strangely quiet between the children's voices. Nathan rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table. Then you'd be making this harder than it has to be. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Erin looked toward the yard and said nothing. I closed the grill and turned off the burners. Come for dinner next Sunday, I said. No kids. Rebecca will be here with some updated papers. Erin straightened. Your attorney? Nathan nodded slowly. That makes sense. She can explain how the transition should work. She can explain the papers, I said. I called Sophie and Mason back for food before either adult could turn the table into a hearing. That evening, after the dishes were dry, an envelope from Lakeside rested inside my screen door. It contained the complete resident packet, addressed directly to me. Most of it concerned meals, emergency contacts, and apartment rules. Near the end, a boxed line read, "Resident consents voluntarily." The signature space beneath it was empty. I ran my thumb across the blank line. They had reserved the room, priced my house, redirected my mail, and rehearsed my future with my grandchildren. Every part of their plan stopped at the signature they had never secured. 6 days before the dinner, Rebecca cleared a corner of her conference table and opened an empty blue folder. Only what we can prove, I said. That's the rule. We arranged the records by date. The bank access history came first, followed by the changed mailing address, the card freeze request, and the attempt to add Erin as account manager. Then came the clinic intake Erin had submitted, Dr. Patel's independent evaluation, Nathan's request for a market analysis, the Lakeside reservation and deposit receipt, and a summary of my updated estate plan. Rebecca removed 2 pages containing my notes about Nathan's tone. Accurate? She asked. Yes. Provable? I looked at the pages, then slid them aside. No. The bank's investigation report said the online requests came from an internet address previously associated with Nathan's household. That tied the requests to his home connection, but it did not identify the person at the keyboard. I left the sentence exactly that narrow. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and made 2 lists. The first was titled What They Did. They changed information without permission. They spoke for me. They stripped the context from ordinary mistakes. They planned a move without my consent. The second list took longer. What I will not do. I would not humiliate them in front of Sophie and Mason. I would not threaten their inheritance because I was angry. I would not stretch the evidence past what the records showed. I would not use Joan's death to corner Nathan. I would not mistake forgiveness for giving control back. At the bottom, I began another sentence. Make Nathan admit what happened after Joan's stroke. I crossed it out before the ink dried. Joan's hospital room did not belong in a legal file, and I had no right to drag her memory to the table as a weapon. When Rebecca read both pages the next morning, she tapped the second one. This matters as much as the folder. It may be harder to follow. Then keep the consequences focused on access and authority. On Sunday, Sophie stayed with a teammate, and Mason went to a friend's house. I set 4 places in the dining room. Rebecca arrived carrying the blue folder, but nothing else that made the evening look like a legal proceeding. Nathan and Erin came 10 minutes early. Erin brought wine. Nathan took off his jacket and glanced toward the empty chairs. The kids aren't coming? This is an adult conversation. His eyes moved to Rebecca. Before we sat down, he touched my shoulder. I'm glad you're finally letting us take care of this. I lifted the serving bowl from the counter. I've decided who will handle everything. Erin's grip loosened around the wine bottle. Nathan gave Rebecca a small, relieved nod. The silence let them hear the answer they wanted. I had chosen my words carefully, and for a moment I wondered whether that made me any better. Then I remembered the empty consent line. They could survive 5 more minutes without controlling the conclusion. During dinner, they spoke carefully. Nathan asked whether Lakeside had sent me the floor plan. Erin mentioned that apartment 214 received morning light. Neither asked whether I wanted it. After the main course, I cleared the plates. Rebecca waited until I returned, then placed the blue folder beside my water glass. I am capable of managing my affairs, I said. Dr. Patel has confirmed that independently. I have also updated my legal documents. Nathan leaned forward. Erin held still. I remain sole trustee while I have capacity. If 2 independent physicians ever determine otherwise, the independent trust company becomes successor trustee. Neither of you will control the trust or decide whether this house is sold. Nathan's relief disappeared. You said you decided who would handle everything. I did. Rebecca opened the folder. On top lay the bank record showing that the requests had come through the network connected to Nathan's household. He read the address once. Then again. A pulse moved along his jaw. That's our home network, he said. Erin reached for her water and missed the glass by an inch before correcting her hand. Nathan turned toward her. You told me he approved the changes. Erin looked at the open folder. I told you he would. Erin's answer stayed between us. I put my hand on the blue folder. No interruptions until I finish. After that, each of you can answer. Nathan sat back. Rebecca gave a small nod. I placed the records across the table one at a time. First came the address change, the redirected security codes, the frozen cards, and the lower daily limit. Then I added Erin's request to manage the account, the cognitive screening intake, the realtor inquiry, and the lakeside reservation. The paper made a soft, dry sound against the wood. Nobody touched dinner. Nathan, which of these did you know about? He stared at the row. I agreed to freeze the cards. I called the realtor, and I said they could use our address. They? His eyes shifted toward Erin. The bank, whoever handled the forms. Erin said you'd agreed to simplify things. I turned to her. Did I ever say yes? Erin's face had gone pale, but her voice held. You didn't object when I brought up Lakeside. That wasn't my question. She pressed her lips together. No, you never said yes. I gave you options. She continued. You listened. You didn't argue, I thought. Rebecca spoke for the first time. Silence is not authorization. Mentioning an idea is not consent. Nathan dragged a hand down his face. She told me you approved the changes. She may have told you what you wanted to hear, I said, but you chose not to ask me. He looked down. I set Dr. Patel's report beside the clinic intake. No impairment affecting capacity. Now let's review the evidence you used against me. I read the list. 1 late library book. 1 confused appointment date. Help with a banking app. And a duplicate bill I had already corrected. Nathan picked up the intake and read it slowly. The book was in your truck? Under the seat. He turned another page, and the water payment was reversed. Before Erin submitted this. His fingers tightened around the paper. I kept looking for signs. Every small thing fit after a while. Because you had already decided what it meant. Nathan set the intake beside Dr. Patel's report. I never asked what happened first. I only asked whether it could be a symptom. He did not argue when I nodded. Erin pushed her chair back a few inches. My grandmother had Alzheimer's. Everybody waited. They kept calling it forgetfulness and saying she deserved her independence. Her eyes stayed on the table. Then one night she went outside in a snowstorm. They found her near a drainage ditch. She lived. My mother blamed herself for years. The refrigerator motor clicked off in the kitchen. After that, I thought waiting for an older person to agree could mean waiting too long. Erin said, I thought acting early was safer. I believed her pain. I also saw what she had built from it, a rule that made my consent optional. Nathan looked at her, then at the records carrying his own name. The anger had gone from his face. What remained looked closer to recognition, and it offered him nowhere to hide. I don't doubt you were scared, I said, but being scared did not let you speak for me. Erin's eyes filled, though she did not wipe them. You didn't steal my money. You stole the space where my no was supposed to matter. I gathered the papers into a single stack. All account access is revoked and will stay revoked. Neither of you will serve as my agent, trustee, or nominated guardian. From now on, conversations about my health, house, or finances begin with me. I have declined apartment 214 in writing. Lakeside is releasing it, and the deposit is your loss. The bank and clinic already had written instructions limiting future changes to me or the independent professionals I had chosen. Nathan flinched. If either of you attempts access again without permission, Rebecca will take legal action. My new estate plan is already in effect. So that's it? Nathan asked. You're cutting me out? No. You and the children are still beneficiaries. I removed you from positions of authority. I did not remove you from the estate. He studied the height marks visible through the kitchen doorway. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its edge. I treated you like a risk report. I stopped talking to you like you were my dad. The admission hurt more than his anger had. He did not ask me to make him feel better. I'm sorry, he said. Erin leaned forward. Raymond, I need you to understand. Not tonight. Tonight, you listen. She lowered her hands to her lap. Rebecca closed the folder. Nathan remained in his chair while the ice melted untouched in his glass. Is there any road back from this? He asked. I looked across the table at my son. Joan and I had bought it when he was 12. A road, yes. A shortcut, no. For the first few weeks after the dinner, Nathan called less often. The calls he did make were short and careful. He offered no explanation for the distance, and I did not ask him to fill it. I did not rush to comfort him. One Saturday, he stood on my porch and noticed that one side of Joan's wind chime had pulled loose from the beam. He looked at the hook, then at the ladder inside my garage. Would you like me to fix it? Or would you rather handle it? The question was awkward in his mouth. That made me trust it more. You can fix it, I said. The ladder's behind the mower. He waited for me to unlock the garage. He did not reach for my keys or tell me to stay inside. I steadied the ladder while he replaced the bent hook. When he climbed down, the copper tubes turned in the breeze and gave a low, uneven chord. How's that? I listened for a moment. That's right. It was the first help I had accepted from him since the cards were frozen. Erin's letter arrived the following week in an envelope addressed by hand. She wrote about her grandmother, the snowstorm, and the years her mother spent blaming herself. Near the middle, she said that history explained her fear but did not excuse what she had done to me. She did not ask me to forgive her. She said the lost lakeside deposit belonged to her and Nathan and would never be raised as a debt I owed them. I put the letter in the blue folder. I agreed to one counseling session, then another. My purpose was not to rebuild the old arrangement. The old arrangement had allowed concern to become permission. We needed a different one. At the first session, Nathan admitted he did not know how to help without taking charge. He had kept his distance rather than risk doing it again. Erin attended both sessions. She did not repeat the story about her grandmother or ask the counselor to soften what had happened. When she spoke, she kept her hands folded and named her own choices. Nathan began asking before he came over. Tuesday work, or would Thursday be better? Before touching a loose cabinet hinge, he asked whether I wanted it repaired. Before asking about my blood pressure, he said, "Can I ask a health question?" The first time money came up, he stopped himself. "Actually, is that something you want to discuss?" "Not today." "Okay." The conversation moved on. No sigh, no second attempt. I did not restore his bank access or name him in any fiduciary role. He never asked me to. Sophie and Mason kept visiting. We talked about exams, basketball, and a science project involving 3 doomed bean plants. Neither child carried messages between adults. When Sophie asked whether I was still moving, I told her I had decided to stay in my house. She accepted that answer faster than the grown-ups had. 3 months after the dinner, Monica invited me to speak at an existing fraud prevention workshop at the public library. I agreed to one session. I had no foundation to launch and no desire to become a symbol. About 20 people sat in folding chairs beneath fluorescent lights. I told them how temporary access had expanded, how small mistakes had been stripped of context, and why concern did not erase consent. Help should begin with a question, not a password, I said. Afterward, I returned the microphone and stacked chairs with the librarian. Nathan waited near the entrance. He had asked before coming. "Would you want to get breakfast once a week?" he said. "You pick the day, and if weekly is too much, say so." I checked the calendar on my phone. "Wednesday mornings are open." He nodded. "I'll call Tuesday before I put it on mine." 9 months later, I walked into Riverbend Cafe on a Tuesday morning with 2 cards in my wallet and $40 folded behind my driver's license. The cash had become a habit. It no longer felt like armor. The same cashier stood behind the register. Her hair shorter now. She looked at me for a second, and recognition moved across her face without settling into pity. "Morning," she said. "Regular coffee?" "Medium roast. Room for cream." "Still counts as regular." She turned to fill the cup. Behind me, someone shook rain from an umbrella. The grinder started. A chair scraped across tile, and 2 construction workers argued quietly about which highway entrance had closed. The cafe had remembered how to be ordinary. She set the cup beside the register. I took out my debit card. My credit card remained in the next slot, and the folded bills stayed where they were. For half a second, my thumb rested against the edge of the card. Then I inserted it. The terminal gave one plain beep. Approved. 9 months earlier, the silence after a declined card had seemed to fill the entire room. My body had kept a small memory of it. Only when the receipt began curling from the printer did I notice my shoulders release. The cashier slid the coffee toward me. "Have a good one, Mr. Cole." "You too." Nobody turned. Nobody lowered a voice. Nobody offered to rescue me from a small purchase. A man by the window kept reading the sports page, and the workers kept arguing. I carried my coffee to the table near the front. Nathan arrived 4 minutes later. He had called the previous evening to confirm breakfast and had waited while I checked my calendar. Though Wednesday mornings had shifted to Tuesdays months ago. The breakfasts had become steady without becoming compulsory. Some weeks he paid, and some weeks I did. Once I cancelled because I wanted to go fishing. Nathan had said, "Have fun," and moved the invitation to the following week. He set his jacket over the chair opposite mine. "Did you order food?" "Not yet." He glanced at the receipt beside my cup. "Would you like me to get this one?" "No, I've got it." His hand stayed on the back of the chair. He did not reach for his wallet or laugh as if I were being stubborn. He simply sat down. "I know you do." The waitress came over, and we ordered eggs and toast. Nathan asked whether I wanted to attend Mason's game on Saturday. I said yes. He gave me the time and asked if I wanted a ride. "I'll drive myself." "All right." He stirred cream into his coffee. "You can get breakfast next week," I said. He looked up. "You sure?" "If you ask me again." The corner of his mouth lifted. "I can do that." When we finished, I left the tip in cash. Nathan held the cafe door open and stood aside. Outside, the rain had thinned to a mist. Cars moved along Main Street with their headlights on, and water gathered in the cracks of the sidewalk. I stepped through the doorway. Nathan fell into place beside me.